You might not know that a few years before his famous pipebomb, CM Punk already had huge frustrations with the WWE. They revolved mainly around the group he created, which did not have the success it would have deserved, the Straight Edge Society. It's a pleasure to meet you on the Wrestling Paradise to tell you the craziest stories about this controversial faction. Are you ready to be shocked to learn how CM Punk reacted to a remark by The Undertaker about his look backstage? Do you want to understand how this faction is connected to the alcoholic father of the Chicago Kid? Do you want to find out why the company's officials didn't want to push him more at the time? And are you curious to learn about the beautiful gesture that Punk did for his colleague Joey Mercury in real life? You have come to the right place, because in our video we will see stories together that you may not know about the cult of CM Punk, and they might surprise you. You are on the Wrestling Paradise, the craziest stories about the Straight Edge Society. Let's go. To really discover the story of the Straight Edge Society, it is necessary to become sufficiently aware when its foundations have really been laid. It all started when CM Punk had an amazing rivalry against Jeff Hardy in 2009. We remember that he won the Money in the Bank briefcase, which enabled him to steal the heavyweight title that Jeff had just won during the Extreme Rules show. During the following months, the WWE offered us an exciting rivalry between two completely different personalities. On the one hand, there was Hardy, who had addiction problems and his crazy lifestyle, like his way of wrestling.
Unlike you, Jeff, this is the only foreign substance I will allow in my body.
On the other, there was Punk, the man who claimed to be straight edge, that is to say, who does not smoke, does not do drugs, does not drink, a disciplined and strong individual. As for Punk, it was not a character that he played to entertain us. In real life, he has actually been straight edge for years. It is a personal way of seeing things in which he sincerely believed. His childhood had been chaotic because of his father's alcoholism, which had pushed him to adopt this philosophy. It should also be known that it was the first time that he played a villain in the WWE, a register in which he felt perfectly at ease. Imagine that in the summer of 2009, the big boss Vince McMahon summoned him to his office and challenged him to be a good villain, Vince not being convinced that he was capable of it. Pun replied that he would be the most hated villain of the company after 3 months, which he has indeed managed to be. In any case, this story with Jeff had laid the foundations for a character who preached his beliefs, who already wanted fans to take an example from him rather than his rival. What officially created the Straight Edge Society was when CM Punk was no longer alone in his vision of things, but when he had a colleague with him to form a faction. In the fall of 2009, he arrives at the ring in the company of some kind of bodyguard. This is a fairly muscular individual, a henchman. But there is a particularly interesting element around this wrestler. He is not just any person. A few years before, he was Festus, a rather marginal and moronic character who went crazy every time he heard the ring bell.
That's what happens to the court.
It's clear that he needed to be saved. But from now on, he's Luke Gallows. CM Punk did with him what he wishes to do to all the people who listen to him. He reached out to him to save him from his illness. Personally, I think it was absolutely great to use the one who was Festus in the past. It was clever to justify his rather deficient side by the fact he was taking too many substances of all kinds. We didn't suspect it at the time, but Festus was not an idiot, but a person with addictions. Thanks to CM Punk, he was able to overcome his demons. The Chicago Kid now has a mission. He wants to do to the fans what he did for Gallows, help them. For the record, this new association began when Punk was told that he needed someone strong by his side, that he wasn't physically credible enough against an opponent like The Undertaker, for example. He then told himself that he was going to choose one of his best friends. It's interesting to know that a scene that happened backstage at the WWE had a big influence on CM Punk's career in the fall of 2009. We can say that without this moment, he might not have needed to have a fresh start with the Straight Edge Society. Indeed, when CM Punk's rivalry with Jeff Hardy was over, with the latter's departure from the company, the Chicago Kid was one of the main villains of SmackDown, one of the weekly shows of the Federation. First of all, he had a program against The Undertaker in which he lost his heavyweight title. Moreover, it is considered that his loss at the Hell in a Cell 2009 show against the Dead Man in a fairly short time and in the opening match was a punishment from the Federation for Punk. Apparently, when The Undertaker made a remark to him about his rather nonchalant outfit when he was champion while he was supposed to represent the company, he replied that John Cena had the right to do so, so he too. This attitude had not been appreciated behind the scenes. The fact is that at the end of November in 2009, his program against the Phenom was over, and therefore he needed a new start by no longer having the heavyweight title. January 8, 2010 will be a new chapter in this straight-edge prophet character from CM Punk. On that day, he is going to save a person from the crowd. At that moment, we may wonder how he will go about it. We don't know if these will be real fans or fake ones, or what he exactly plans to do to help them. We'll have the illustration a few moments later. He chooses a fan from the audience and brings him into the ring. After reassuring him by telling him he should not be afraid, and having made an assessment of everything that is wrong with him, he makes him kneel down. Now this lost young man must accept him as his savior and give up his former life for good. To prove his membership in the Straight Edge Society and demonstrate that he was sincere in this new commitment, he had to have his skull shaved. Without the shadow of a doubt, it symbolizes this new human being that this character now Straight Edge is becoming. It was a pretty amazing image to see a wrestler shaving the skull of someone who is apparently just a simple fan. With his hand on his head, he has just saved a new person. The scene will end with a celebration of this change. Later, they will do the same with a woman, who will also have her skull shaved. When she is in the ring, we will learn that her name is Serena and that she is an addict who needs help. He tells her that he does not only want these people to stop smoking or alcohol, but that they truly become his disciples, that they pledge allegiance to his sect. Later, in CM Punk's rivalry against Rey Mysterio, the Guru will beat the Mexican at Extreme Rules thanks to the intervention of a new man who therefore seems to join the cult, who is not yet identified. We will later learn that it is actually Joey Mercury, a friend of the Chicago Kid in real life from whom he had even bought the house to help him.
Punk wrote me a check in the 6 figures to bail me out.
When we look at the story of the Straight Edge Society, we can wonder why the clan has not been more successful, why CM Punk has not been a more important superstar when he was this incredible guru. There are certainly some memorable scenes. CM Punk is excellent in his role and thought he had a great future with this band, but none of that led to great things. He didn't have a real rivalry for the heavyweight title. He's not particularly dominant in the ring, they don't have belts. In a WWE, where the main names are John Cena, Randy Orton, The Undertaker, or even the younger Sheamus, the kid from Chicago does not seem to make the company managers want to totally bet on him. After all, let's not forget that the official Michael Hayes said that CM Punk at the time was not the typical WWE prototype. He was not what they usually looked for in their superstars in terms of height, looks, with his tattoos. He said that there were high-ranking people who said about him that he's not their poster boy. However, on SmackDown, where Punk was with his straight-edge friends, the competition is not so huge. In the spring of 2010, Jack Swagger was the heavyweight champion there. There were wrestlers such as Chris Jericho, Edge, Big Show, or Kane. When we see this adversity, which was certainly important but not impossible to overcome, we realize even better that the officials were not big fans of the Straight Edge Society apparently. The Straight Edge Society faction will end for good at the end of the summer of 2010, after a victory of CM Punk against JTG in a moment in which he sermons to his slaves who are like his dogs. We could have thought that there would be a new beginning for them. But a few hours later, Serena will be fired by the Federation. The week after that, Luke Gallows would be destroyed by the Big Show in a 2-on-1 match with Punk against the Giant, which will be the last straw. The kid from Chicago will do his GTS finisher to Gallows, which will symbolize the death of the cult. Luke will say that it was still a very rewarding experience for him, especially since they were really friends. After a defeat, another one, against the Big Show at Night of Champions, CM Punk will definitively move away from this prophet of the Straight Edge Society role. At one point, the group had been suspected on the screen of attacking the Undertaker, which led to them being tracked down by the dead man's brother, Kane. When the latter takes on Punk, Serena will come to save him by revealing the truth in the open. CM Punk is innocent. Indeed, a scene that proves his innocence was filmed. He could not assault The Undertaker because he was too busy saving Serena, who was in a bar drinking alcohol. She therefore did not respect one of the basic principles of the Straight Edge Society. In reality, the company had actually adapted to a real-life situation. In fact, they wanted the sect members not to get out of their characters even in real life. They want them to be true to the perception we have of them so that we believe in what we see on TV every week. For example, we imagine that a fan who would have seen CM Punk take drugs at that time would have found their clan ridiculous and would no longer have taken seriously any story that the WWE tells him. But Serena had really been seen by fans drinking alcohol, which explains this moment produced by the Federation where she relapsed and got yelled at by Punk. This revealed a lack of investment by Serena in her character in the company's eyes, which will be the main reason for her dismissal. We imagine that her colleague must not have liked it either. She said about CM Punk that he has very strong beliefs. He will fight for those beliefs until the day he dies, and he will not apologize for it. A possible explanation behind the end of the straight edge society is also its very controversial side. Let's not forget that Punk presented himself as a wrestling Jesus and did not hesitate to anger the fans in this role. Some criticize the Chicago Kid for going further and further. He multiplied religious references, which risked generating a much too real and dangerous hatred for this guru character he embodied. He said he was doing this intentionally to get as many reactions as possible, which is the goal of any wrestler. It has already happened that an elderly woman slapped him on a non-televised show and told him that he was not Jesus, that he would burn in hell for his sins. After learning this, we think that indeed it may have been too much for a publicly traded company that cares a lot about its image. Even if the straight edge society lasted only about a year, it impacted the career of CM Punk. It is so much a pivotal element of his identity that it was not only in 2009 and in 2010 that the company used CM Punk's lifestyle and his refusal to be addicted to any substance. For example, during the summer of 2008, there was a rather memorable scene with JBL. You should know that this is a time when CM Punk was the World Heavyweight Champion on Monday Night Raw. He was about to defend his title against JBL at SummerSlam. On that day, the Texan wanted to make Punk drink whiskey and tried to crack him, but he will end up taking the drink in his face. A few years later, on June 13, 2011, another memorable scene took place. At that time, we were only a few days away from CM Punk's famous pipe bomb when he crossed paths with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
You want a beer? What?
The two men had in common the fact they were rebels who never let themselves be stepped on by the people in charge. On the other hand, they are complete opposites in their relationship to drinking. While CM Punk totally rejects alcohol, the Texas Rattlesnake is perhaps pro wrestling's biggest drinker. Beer is totally part of his character since he consumes it after almost every one of his stunners, so it was normal for him to offer a beer to CM Punk on that day. Their exchange was certainly short, but it was hilarious, and above all, the contrast between Austin's alcoholic side and Punk's philosophy was great. But it was in his story with Chris Jericho in 2012 that Punk's beliefs were perhaps the most used on screen. The least we can say is that their rivalry had been personal. Of course, Y2J has made full use of Punk's straight-edge lifestyle and all his past related to it. You should already know that Jericho has always been a renowned drinker, a rock star. After all, we are talking about someone who has his own music band, Fozzy. He likes to party, as we could see in this hilarious scene at All Elite Wrestling.
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
During the road to WrestleMania 28, Chris Jericho was talking about CM Punk's father in a promo, an alcoholic. He will also mention Punk's sister, someone who has struggled with drug addiction for a whole part of his life. Y2J was doing all this with a very specific goal: to break Punk mentally and make him fall into addiction. He wanted to make him give up his values and managed to send him down his father's path, the one of alcoholism. In this logic, we saw him pour alcohol on the kid from Chicago and break a bottle on him.
Go straight to your head.
The climax will be a scene where Y2J will make CM Punk do a sobriety test to prove that he was drunk and that he had to have his championship taken away from him. It was a hilarious scene that will end badly for Chris Jericho. And that was it for these craziest stories about the straight edge society. Seeing all these stories, we think that this band was quite original and risky. They were not afraid to shock the fans. With a great Punk in this role, their potential was important in 2010, but it didn't lead to big victories. We can only regret that management did not believe enough in this group, and that some mistakes ended it too soon. This makes me offer you a debate for you. Would it be interesting to see a reunion of the straight edge society? We invite you to come and give your opinion. It will be interesting to talk about it together in the comments and to share our ideas. We can say that the straight edge society is really interesting. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay on the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?